The night smelled of parchment and wax. A candle flickered in a low room, where snow beat against the window pane, and the world outside seemed to have been written in a language no one could read. On the table, protected by an old linen cloth, lay a book that refused to be understood. Pages of a faded green, drawings of plants that didn't grow on any known map, celestial maps where the stars danced in circles that resembled doors. It was the manuscript that, in the words of men, no one can read. They said the book came from the 15th century. The parchment dated by experts between 1404 and 1438. But that only made its condition more somber. It seemed to have been written in an instant when time decided to use characters that didn't belong to any human mouth. The calligraphy flows in regular rows, as if a scribe had sung a secret song and left the music in the strokes of the letters. It was called Voynich by a Polish bookseller who brought it to light in the 20th century. Before that, the book passed through the hands of alchemists, collectors, and curious individuals who, upon touching it, seemed to receive only questions and never answers. Some of the drawings left observers breathless. Naked women emerging from circles of water, plants whose roots were crowns, round diagrams that resembled constellations, but also mechanisms. Therefore, scholars divided the book into sections: herbal, astronomical, balneological, pharmaceutical, as if grouping images were the only way to tame the confusion. Some believed the book was a compendium of cures, remedies applied to the skin, baths that healed the soul, plants of forgotten names that, if chewed under the moonlight, promised to bring back memories. Others, more somber, whispered that it was a manual of forbidden crafts, a codex for the construction of impossible images, and there were those who thought it was all just medieval laughter, an ingenious hoax, a forgery intended to deceive those who had more gold than patience. Some tried to break its code with numbers, substitutions, tables. Others studied the forms of the words as one listens to a song to guess the language. No one repeated the same story. That night, the narrator, a conservative who learned to read with his hands and silence, opened a page where plants bent like birds. He ran his fingers along the margins and felt behind the ink another writing. Not characters, but intention. The intention to hide and at the same time to offer. Because the book was contradictory, each page seemed to invite secrecy. There was order in the repetitions of the words, patterns reminiscent of natural languages. There was also, in the scribe's quick and confident strokes, the feeling that it had been written by someone who knew what they were doing, not by a hasty charlatan. Still, no one could decipher it. Theories came and went like tides. A computer scientist demonstrated that it was possible to reproduce texts with apparent meaning using mechanical devices, a trick that could, in theory, generate something similar to the words in the book without any real meaning. If this were true, perhaps the manuscript was a beautiful forgery. But others pointed to the internal coherence, repetitions, rules, a whisper that was not random. Doubt amplified the mystery, and the greater the mystery, the more the book attracted hungry eyes. Amateurs, cryptographers, linguists, and fantasists. The curator then told a story within the story. He said that, in a recent decade, researchers had returned to gaze at the pages with modern eyes. Cameras that see beyond the visible, infrared, and lights that reveal secrets buried by the passage of centuries. In 2024, multispectral images brought to light erased traces and previously invisible details, layers that suggested the book still held small clues. Some fleeting traces, as if time itself had signed the parchment anew. No one said that this solved the mystery, only that new cracks of light had appeared, and cracks always invite more questions. In the room, the candle flickered, and the curator closed his eyes, as if remembering that all the world's great enigmas are, in essence, stories that resist translation. A long complicit silence fell, and he spoke of the voices. Voices claiming sudden decodings, translations made in weeks by authors who, more often than not, saw their reading questioned by the community. There were also those who pointed to famous names, cryptographers from world wars who tried to decipher the writing without success, and those who preferred the theory that it was an unknown language written in an invented script. Thus, the book remained, a mirror that reflected interpretations.
In the end, when the candle had little more than a wisp of smoke, the curator closed the book and placed his hand on the cover. The true value of this manuscript, he said, lies not only in the answers it may contain, but in the way it forces us to ask the right questions. The night visitor stepped out into the street, carrying with him the feeling that he had touched something greater than an enigma, an artifact that reminds him how history can be, at the same time, a whisper and a labyrinth. And in the shadows, the manuscript waited. Perhaps one day, the letters will cease to be locked doors and become windows. Or perhaps they will continue to be what they have always been for the curious. An indecipherable invitation to imagine worlds where the known meets the impossible.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like below and share it with your friends. I'll be back with you in the next video.